Perfect. All right. Well, welcome to the Spring for Spears Book Club. We are here to discuss this epic novel. This is going to be a really fun one because we have Derek Siddoway with us, who is my co-writer. And this is the first I've ever done this, right? So I've never actually agreed to co-write with anyone, and a lot of people have asked me to co-write with them. The closest I've done is written short stories for anthologies, but I've never agreed to actually develop a separate world and co-write with someone. So Derek is obviously a pretty cool guy for me to agree to do that. And I think Spring for Spears shows that.
I think the most important qualifier there is that you have agreed to finish the series. So not only did you agree to co-author with me, but you've also agreed to write 3 more books with me, at least.
We're stuck, man.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a contract. Derek.
I am deadly terrified of Katie's husband, but this is really like an author. This is like an author marriage, basically, like with a contract, with a lot of pre-dumps. But
it's like our companies got married. It's like our creative sides got married for this endeavor.
Your work spouses.
We are kind of work spouses in a way. Yeah. He has no reason to fear my real spouse, but I get why. Anyway, so before we kind of dive into this, I will, to spare you the need, Derek, I'll kind of like help guide the questions and discussions, but pop in anytime you have questions that you want to ask them. These guys are awesome discussers. They always have a lot of really cool things to say, and it's pretty casual around here, right? So
I'll take my tie off.
Yeah, yeah, you're definitely not wearing a tie. So as always, I love to first clear out, did anyone have any big questions that we need to discuss right now at the beginning? Any pressing, like, oh my gosh, let's talk about this?
No.
Just been waiting for the next one.
I know. Ashton's a
good
one.
So, yeah,
you're not the only one.
You knew that was coming, so.
I was going to say, that's our Lila. She's, straight to the point.
Well, I'm really curious what it was like as an experience for you guys to get out of Alcara, but like read my fantasy work. So a lot of you have read my contemporary romance coffee shop series, right? So you guys are used to maybe seeing Katie out of Alcara, but what was it like for like fantasy Katie to be out of Alcara and written with someone else? I'm curious what your perceptions about the book were that way.
I'm totally out of the loop because I haven't read this one yet.
There will be spoilers. Yep, there will be spoilers, Dan.
Yeah, I just kind of caught this. I got the email last minute.
Oh, yeah.
I actually was on my way to bed and I got the email and I'm like, oh, well, I'll just pop in and say hi.
We actually get that a lot.
I have not read this one yet, but I listen. I can't hold a book because of arthritis, but I listen to everything. So I haven't gotten to this one yet, but it's on my to-do list. So
I totally understand. I have about 8,000 audiobooks on my list too.
Oh Lord, don't even get me started. So
I love audiobooks. I love listening to them.
That's about the only way I get through books now is audio. And I've heard them worse than real books.
I have really bad arthritis in my hands and it's hard to hold a book. So I listen to books most of the time. So I'm finishing up the right before Sister Witches, and then
The Advocate.
I may pause that and start this one, and then move back. So,
I mean, you can't go wrong. They're all amazing. If you
I'm
totally by myself.
This stuff. I only found it probably maybe 3 or 4 months ago. So
even better.
Yeah, and I started with the Mabel with the Mabel books.
Miss Mabel's School for Girls.
Miss Mabel's School. Yeah, I started with that, and now I went back to all the prequel stuff. So then I started all over again, so I could get it all figured out in order. So yeah,
it's a lot. There's a lot of books.
But it's good. It's I've really enjoyed them. So now I'm going to stop this and move on, and then come back and catch up again.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, no problem at all. Well, I mean, if you want to stay, feel free, but we'll have spoilers, so we totally understand if you want to go.
Yeah, no, I just thought I'd pop in and say hi.
It was so good to meet you,
Hello.
Jan.
Yeah,
Have a
good to
good
meet you.
night.
I'm so off to bed. I have had a week
Yes.
in Hades, and
Oh,
I
I'm sorry.
am off to bed. So
We'll have a good sleep,
to
and
have
hopefully
you,
we'll
Jan.
see you soon.
Take care.
thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, I will definitely listen to this, and I'll catch up on the next one because I want no spoilers.
Oh, yeah, you're my kind of girl. That sounds
Yeah.
great. Thanks, Jan.
So good to chat, and I'll see you guys later.
Yes,
See
ma'am.
ya.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so any thoughts? Anyone on reading outside of Alcara, or was it as smooth as you wanted?
Garrett had his hand up first.
I liked it. I liked it because it took, I guess because I have kind of a Norse background. I mean,
Mhm.
Scandinavian background. It
Mhm.
took me kind of
Olsen.
back to like, yeah, Olsen. Yeah, it touched me there in a different way than Alcara does.
Mhm. Good.
Kind of like, the ancestry type thing,
Mhm.
which I
That's
like.
awesome. Yeah, because then it's a different experience for you, and it's
Mhm.
kind of new and fresh, but still really fun. That's awesome. Garrett, did you have thoughts?
Oh, I was just gonna say, how I do audio. So, like at first, I kept expecting, because obviously you narrated, so I kept expecting to hear, Max or Bianca or whoever. Like I kept going back. So at first it was a little bit distracting until I could get on track, because I was so used to hearing your voice in your world, right? So it seriously took me a little bit just to get onto the new track, right?
Interesting. I
I-
hadn't thought
I
about
did exactly the same. I did exactly the same. I'm listening and then suddenly I went, what? And then I went,
like
oh, different world. So I went, okay, I better start again. So I went back to the beginning and I started again, because it was like suddenly there was all these new magics and new systems, and not just new people, because like you do new people all the time, but it was literally like everything was new. And I suddenly
Mhm.
went, I was in the wrong station. I was getting off at the wrong, oh no, it's not that airport. I'm in this one. Like,
It's not Hogwarts. It's
So I
not
did
Lita
exactly
Wood.
the
It's
same.
not Hogwarts. It's
Oh my gosh, that's funny. So was it because the voices were too similar, or my
No.
voice is just
no,
associated with Alcara?
Yeah, your voice is Alcara, right? So
Funny.
Yeah.
I'm waiting,
Yeah.
like hearing your voice, waiting
Yeah.
to hear something I'm familiar with, right? But everything
Yeah.
is new. And
Yeah.
it just kept
Yeah.
like, yeah. So,
Oh my
so
gosh,
that,
that's
I
funny.
mean, don't get me wrong, it was a really good book. I really
Oh,
enjoyed
sure.
it. Obviously, I messaged
Yeah.
you like right when I got done. I'm like, okay, when's the next one?
Yeah, I know, I love
But-
it. I love your enthusiasm.
But like I said, just that first little bit there, I had to continue to concentrate to try and get onto the new track. So
That's
I
funny.
thought you would enjoy that little tidbit.
I did, yeah. I love ever hearing your experience, right? I'm always up for hearing what your experience is, but that one makes me laugh. Like that's interesting. What were you gonna say, Carol?
Can I just say I hate Oscar?
Oh,
What?
Why?
No.
Just saying, yeah. Not my favorite dude.
Did you find her
Eric, I don't
despicable?
know who invented that dude, but not a real pleasant dude.
That was
That was Derek. That was
He's a
Derek.
villain.
I'll take credit for that.
Whisper.
Nice
He's a
job,
villain.
Derek. He's a poop.
He's a poop. Well, but what did you think of Rosamund?
She's sneaky.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's a chip off the old block, isn't she?
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
but more subtle about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right, Diane. Yeah.
Rosamund is a hard one because you want to like her, right?
Mhm.
And maybe even part of you kind of does like her, but then you learn about the machinations and you're like, well, poop on you, Rosamund.
You
I know.
suck too.
You suck
So-
too. Just like your dad.
We I don't know if this will survive Katie's draft. I feel like that's my disclaimer, but
Wait, but
Um,
tell them why. Tell them why you're worried about this.
so a little bit of backstory on this, and we explained this on the podcast, and I think we've talked about it, so I won't go into a ton of detail. But this started off as a book I was going to do solo in like 2019. And then Katie and I, that was when she'd released her Dragon Master trilogy, and I just released my Griffin Riders books. And we had kind of shared those books with our readers and found that they were, in a similar vein, kind of similar flavor, right? And so I was like, hey, I've got this idea for a new series that is kind of a crossover that I think would be cool to write together. And I convinced her to say yes. She was a little hesitant, but I can't remember.
This is
how
where
it
the
all
marriage
happened,
started.
but, yep. But she
I reluctantly
said yes.
said yes.
She was hesitant, but she said yes. So
I want a prenup. That's what I said.
And then right, which was fair because that was 2019, and then early 2019, maybe end of 2018 even.
Yeah.
And then I acquired the rights to a pair of books that I had, I guess you could say, produced. I didn't write them, but I'd done the outline and someone else had written them. And so I told Katie, I was like, hey, hold on, I need to postpone the wedding, right? And she was like, okay. So me and another co-author worked on what was supposed to be like a revision of these two books, ended up being a total rewrite. It was like I wrote two more books. So then, like, COVID happens beginning of 2020. I have a kid, Katie moves, and here we are in April of 2023 when this book actually came out, like 4.5 years later. So anyway, all that being said, I gave her the finished draft, right? And it was bigger than I intended. My intent was to write like a 90,000 word book, right? But I gave her like 123,000 words.
It was a beast. Like
And I was like,
that's bigger than Freedom by like another like 60 pages, something like that. Like it was a big book. I was like, this is the first book, Derek.
And I think I got back, we had the numbers, but actually I think it's on like the Shopify page. I'm going to pull up the word count from the final version.
I think I called like 30 or 40,000 words.
30,000 words met their death. And it wasn't a bad thing,
But if you think about it, most authors average what, 2,000 to 4,000 words a day. So I basically got rid of like weeks of his work. Just
like probably 2 weeks.
He was like, oh, that one hurt.
It was like the Princess Bride. She's like, I just sucked 2 weeks of your life away. I think I'm gonna find it. Anyway, yeah. So the final book clocked in at 88,000 words. So yeah, 50,000 words got cut. So anyway, I say that when I say what I was about to say. If it doesn't get cut, we are going to have a few chapters from Rosamund's point of view in book 2, which I think I'm really excited to write. I'm working on the first Rosamund chapter right now, and it's kind of like just figuring out, okay, we haven't really been in her head yet, and a lot of things have changed in her life, just as they've changed for Astrid. But I'm excited to play with that kind of that comparison between her and Astrid and writing from her point of view. And that was, I think it will make it, so fear not, because that was something Katie had suggested back when
I actually didn't know that either, so we're all surprised.
Surprise.
I like the idea. I think it'll be fun to have Rosamund's point of view, but I love altering point of views, so I think
Katie's just kind of left me in the laboratory with this one, so I'm getting it pushed out, and then I'll say, here you go, and yeah, it'll be cool. We have a I think we have a cool system where we're writing this one a little differently than we did the first one. You won't be able to tell on the reader end that there's anything different, but our behind the scenes process for how we're making the sausage is a little bit different. So
Derek is like, I'm not writing 120,000 words for you to cull it down to 80 again.
Basically what I pitched her on was, I was like, so I shoot for like 2,000 word chapters to kind of keep the pacing going, right? And what I told Katie was, okay, an 80-ish thousand word book, we're looking at 40-ish chapters. I'm going to give you 1,000 words a chapter so you can add to it rather than taking half of
Take
all
away
of
from it. Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes.
That'd be great. Andy, did you have something that you wanted to say?
No, I was gonna ask you, if you had so much, why didn't you ask her, okay, let's cut it down and make 2 books? If you had enough material for 2 books.
That's a fair
Or
question.
was it stuff that wasn't, like worth keeping?
Essential.
So this is an interesting question because there's 2 factors that go into it. It might seem like on the surface, like, well, I could do 2 60,000 word books, but plot structure doesn't always allow that. You can't really cut a book in half and then have a solid ending. I mean, you can cut a book in half, but your
Well,
readers are
you
gonna
have
hate you,
left us with
right?
a big, with huge cliffhangers,
Yes,
sweetie.
but
I mean,
those were intentional
Those are
within. So
intentional.
they're intentional. So there's a 3-act structure in play, right? And to just cut a book in half because you have a lot in that 3-act structure really messes with your story. So this is me talking from experience because this is kind of what I did with Miss Mabel's and Alcara Awakening. Miss Mabel's and Alcara Awakening are really one plot arc, and I just kind of cut it in half because it was my first book, right? I wasn't that experienced. I didn't know that much about it. I kind of knew what was going on, but not really. I couldn't put it into words. And I get complaints that I created a cliffhanger with Marie's death just to get people to read the second book, and that was never it. Like in my head, that was just how the book ended, right? So we wouldn't want to do that. But the other thing is, I think it would have been fine, like at 110 to 120-ish thousand words. But what it came down to for me was this is not my style, right? So that would have been a Derek book with Katie editing because there was more information kind of between scenes than I was used to dealing with. And I thought there's a lot of Derek that we can keep, but if we keep too much Derek, this isn't going to read like a Katie Cross book. So I did a lot of cutting so that it moved in the way that my books did, but still maintained the Derek feel that he has, right? So part of that was just preserving my reader's experience within the book, so it actually read like a Katie Cross book and a Derek Siddoway book. That was something on my mind, like how do I edit what he has written so that it moves the same way for both of us, So that's another factor.
Well, I could see that similarity. I mean, I could see, because I've read the Griffin writers, and I could see the similarities, like you said, your take on stories and Derek's take on stories. And it's a great blend of your 2 styles. It's a beautiful marriage, like you say, a marriage, but it's a beautiful marriage of those 2 styles to give us yet another world that we can go into and experience.
Perfect.
So,
well, that was the goal. So right. Yay!
and we, I won't speak for Katie, but I wouldn't have just pitched the idea to write this if I didn't think that we had complementary styles, right? Like I said, I've done a 2 other series with a different co-author, and that was I learned a lot with that, just not only on process but just on blending voices and kind of how you go back and forth on drafts. And yeah, it's not. I've been really fortunate to work with 2 separate authors that, like I said, really complements my writing and also just improves my storytelling. Like Katie brings in a lot of things with, we'll have some more romance, but I'm like a Neanderthal with writing romance. Right? Like,
you guys, I mean, I would never disparage anyone, but I was like, oh, Derek, you sweet pea. Like what?
Like I don't do it.
I didn't write any romance. I don't care. Do whatever you want with them. So I was like, great. So I just took that on.
But yeah, we it's really cool to kind of see how it turns out. And for me, like when I got Katie's draft back at 88,000, which fun fact, after that we ended up moving it to a different world too. So this book went through like another revision after I got Katie's draft to put it in its own world. So like we changed the names of countries, but like the magic changed. The stuff we did with with Margu and that's different.
Oh wow.
So that was a whole other. So as I was going through and like I literally did a rewrite after Katie had sent me back to 88,000 words, and there was never a part where I was like, oh, she wrote this or I wrote this. So like and granted it had been a few months, but I thought that was kind of the test for me. It was like, I don't really know who wrote what here. And honestly, I pride myself on pacing, but she did a really good job with what she took out, because there's only one scene that I could tell you that I know she took out. The rest of that, and that was like 2 chapters. So outside of 4,000 words out of 50,000, I have no idea what she cut really, which I thought was, and that's a lot of work on her end too, to kind of like, we joked that she slaughtered 50,000 of my words, but that's not like you just go in and delete it. Like there's a lot of work on her end to fix that too.
Because you have to puzzle it all together and fix your pacing and make sure the plot arc moves correctly and stuff. So yeah, it was a lot of work on both parts.
Restructured it too. Yeah,
I
like we
did.
moved some scenes around and like a lot of stuff changed, but
I was like, you might want to read this carefully. Like this baby underwent a big makeover. Yeah.
And I was just gonna say last thing, the scene that was cut was as they're on their way to Drakby, there's
the river scene.
Yeah, the river scene. So it's spring, right? The river's running high, and one of the I almost call them gunlings. One of the tierlings, which is one of the changes, falls in the river, and Astrid jumps in and pulls him out, and then Ewan kind of throws her a rope and pulls her out. And that was really their first meeting. So we took that out partly because it was their first meeting and the action didn't really serve anything. But that's the only bonus content I could tell you that was cut. Like I said, they were really good edits.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm also curious, what are your thoughts? So Derek is a Griffin writer, right? Like, so he has griffins, I have dragons. We all love our wild animals. What was it like, or were you excited to stay with a character that still had some sort of like creature or animal that they bond with? So you love the wolves?
I love the wolves. I've been bursting to say that, and you wouldn't give me a chance because everyone keeps talking.
Just sing it out, Lila. Let's hear it, man.
I'm with you, girl.
So you love
dogs, and I love dogs, and wolves just remind me of huskies, and they're one of my favorite animals. And it's like, yeah, because there is still a part of me that I would love to be Astrid, I would love to bond with a wolf. I'm serious. I mean, if
that wolf is not going to eat me, I could go for that. Like, we have wolves up here, and I'm like, go away. You don't need to be here. But I'm like, if we're going to be friends and we can talk to each other, it's a different story. So, but these ain't your mama's wolves, right? These are like dire wolves. They're like giant. I mean, I said to Derek, so we were developing this world, and I was like, so Derek, like, how big is this land that Astrid and her tribe lives in? Because they basically live with like bison that are carnivores. So like we need enough, like, what do they eat? Like, is there enough to, like, we can't have too many of these wolves because we can't feed them. Like, can you imagine if a bison was a carnivore? Like, we could feed a pack of those, right? But so these are these huge wolves, and Astrid really wants to bond with one and like follow in the steps of her mother as a warrior and all that stuff. But in the end, she gets this very regular sized wolf. What did you guys think about that?
I love that. I love that. It's like, I just can't wait for that to just eke out more and find out all the whys and wherefores and everything. And they found each other, and I just thought that was beautiful.
Yeah. Well, so one thing that we discussed in this decision to not give Astrid like your average everyday wolf, because Astrid is small, right? Like, she's a very slender, shorter character, which I pushed really hard because I was like, I can't recreate Bianca here. And like, short girls, power, right? Like, we got to have a main character that spices things up a little bit. But then I loved this idea that her and Mara are so different from like all the other people in their respective tribes, right? So Mara's like this normal wolf against these giant dire wolves, right? But she has this magical ability that's similar to them. And then you have Astrid, who is smaller and is sort of the underdog in some ways, even though she shouldn't have been. And so her and Mara kind of bond through that. And I love the tension that gives into Astrid's conflict immediately, right? Because she's sort of the same, but not the same at all. And isn't that just like life, right? Like, we're all sort of the same, but not quite. So yeah, I'm glad to hear your thoughts on that, because I really appreciated the bond between Mara and Astrid.
And
Were you?
seasons and nature and all of that. Love all that.
You love all of it.
What part? What part, Lila?
The seasons.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Seasons, nature, you know, that sort of like, can't wait for the rest of that to come out more as well. And yeah,
We're gonna have more magic in the next couple books.
Yeah.
Right?
For
Like
sure.
we're
Yeah.
figuring out the magic too. Margot's got to talk to us now. Oh, but it'll be a very different magic system from what we see in Alcara, which is it's really fun to kind of play that out and do that. What did you think about the bards and Ewan? Did you like Ewan?
Yeah,
I like Ewan.
I think there's more
I
to
like the
him than
relationships. Yeah.
I agree with you, Diane. I think
there's a
to
lot more
Ewan than
hidden
meets the
back
eye.
there.
Mhm.
Are you excited to figure it out?
Yeah.
The
trying to-
Astrid and Ewan were
I
a
was
lot harder
I
on
was
each other.
listening. I was listening today when I was at work, and because I'm the only one in the office,
Oh,
and
nice.
when that fight scene between Astrid and Ewan and those two dorks that Oscar
Oh,
put on him, that was amazing. I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm gonna stop work for a minute here. I gotta listen to this. Late. And then she comes up with all these cool ideas, and it's like, yes, way to
That's
go,
Derek. That's Derek. I have to
way
say,
to go, Derek. I like
I
it.
like how she found out later that Ewan could fight better, and she's like, "What do you mean you held back?"
That was
Derek-
a really fun fight scene to write.
Derek has a very strong fight scene game, and that was one of the reasons I was really excited to write with him, is because he has these strengths that I don't, and I was really excited to like learn from him, but then present these like different ways of doing it. And that fight scene, when I read it, I was like, yes, on point. That was a good one.
It kind of reminded me of your fight scenes in the Griffin Writers, Derek, because those get intense also, but there's
Mhm.
always that little twist in there that you're not ready for, and then all of a sudden there it is. Just like when Astrid threw the shield, it's like,
Yeah. I like those
Right.
bits. Take their
well, take the
fun.
defensive weapon and use it as an offensive weapon, and it's like people don't think about that, and I
And
love that.
I haven't read, I've probably forgotten most of Griffin Writers because it's been so long since I wrote it, but it was a really cool dichotomy, just looking at the different relationship between the mythical creature and the person, but also just the differences. Katie talked about wanting to make Astrid kind of her own character and unique from her other characters, and it was the same way with Eva and Astrid, right, where they have some similarities, but in attitude, like they're just total opposites, right? And so it was fun to explore that. And yeah, it's fun to do fight scenes with a character like Astrid, who's just ready to fight all the time, right?
She's kind of a angry cat that's bottled up. Like that's how I think of Astrid. She's a small angry cat that's hissing at everything right now. And like my goal over the next couple books is to sort of smooth her out a little. Like, you don't have to be quite so angry, Astrid. She's a little bit Sana in that regard, for sure. It's a little bit like Sana. What do you guys want to see more of in the future books? Like, what are you excited about for book 2 and 3 and stuff? Because there will be 4 Astrid books for sure. We are under contract for 4 books.
We will do 4.
And if you guys continue to love Astrid, then there's potentials for us to develop more like add-on series and stuff for her. But for sure, there will be 4. So, what are you guys looking forward to more of?
Well, as you
So-
said, the magics and sorry, go.
Magics.
I actually was gonna step you back one. I had a question.
Shoot.
You were talking about, oh, I bet everybody's excited to see what happens with this character and so on and so forth. Well, do you guys ever run into, like, say, Derek, you think the character's going in this direction, Katie, you hear the character in your head going another direction? What happens when you have the same character going in 2 different directions in each of your own heads? Like, how does that work with co-authors, so on and so forth? What happens there?
So do you want to, we can talk a little bit about the process. I think that would answer the question.
Yeah, that was my thought. So you can take it, Derek.
So what we did with this book is I had the concept, right? And the concept was basically, kind of nomadic Scandinavian influenced warriors who ride giant wolves. And that was it, right? So then we
I
kind
was
of
like,
figure out
yes.
that was literally it. And so what we did, we spent a ton of time going over the outline on this, like a lot of early mornings. We'd have like 5 a.m. story meetings, right? And spend an
Yeah, by
hour.
early, like we would wake up at 5 a.m. and chat over Zoom for like an hour to an hour and a half before he went to work and before this was when Warrior Princess was a newborn or like
Wow.
6 months old, like really little, yeah.
And I wrote like a really brief outline, and Katie would go back and kind of from a structure point of view put in some stuff, but we also just had, so basically both of us give the thumbs up for the outline right before we start writing anything. So it's not like we pantsed any of this, but and then I did the rough draft. And so I went in, and when I do rough drafts, if you ever talk to my other co-author AJ, he knows I'm notorious for this. And I didn't do it as much with Katie, but I'll be writing along and I'll be like, oh, super cool idea that we hadn't planned on. I'm going to put this in. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it's like, oh, it blows things up, right? But to answer your question, Garrett, so what Katie got after we both went through the outline together was the first draft, right? So we had agreed on the direction we wanted it to go, and all that talk of like, does the character go this way or that way, we definitely have those discussions, but we hash them out in the outline, again with the goal of saving stuff later on, right? Saving rewrites and things like that. And even though and Katie still did some things too, because basically when I give her the book, like a big part of this is trust, right? Like I give her the rough draft and I just say, whatever you think we need to do to make it better, go for it. And of course, Katie, if there are any huge changes, she'd be like, okay, we need to have a meeting. Let's talk through, this is what I'm going to do. So there's a lot of communication on the changes she made. And, neither of us is, maybe, I don't think humble's the right word, but neither of us are like stuck on,
We're not
we have
precious
to
about
have
our
this.
work, right?
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
not,
like
right,
we're,
exactly.
yeah.
And so, yeah, there are changes and there were rearranges, but we have those discussions, and none of them were heated, but I mean, we had a few spots, and I can't remember what they were, where we were like, we had to talk through a few things where we're like, I don't know if she'd do this, or I don't know if that other character would do this. So like, there's definitely heavy discussion. It's not all just like, oh yeah, this is totally how we both want to do it, and we're totally in sync all the time. But we do all that in the outlining phase to save once we get into the writing.
I think I agree with all that, because really I think our process is what set it up for success. But also, I think both of us were so committed to the reader experience. We're like, well, in the end, it's like, well, what's going to be best for the reader? If the character does this and it's inconsistent, then we need to do this. And like, how do we, like, I would say my readers are gonna like probably have a better experience if we kind of do it this way because I haven't represented this, or like, would that work with your readers, so that we could start something that satisfied both of our audiences and then kind of created a new audience of like shared readership. So I think because both of us were committed to that, it just worked out pretty easily. Like we haven't ever really argued, and we were both kind of committed to you guys having an awesome reader experience at the end, which is actually why I said yes to Derek, because I knew that our audiences were similar and that co-writing with him wouldn't take away from your experience. Like you would be able to maintain your trust in me because the book would be similar to what I do but different. And also, like, I knew he was committed to the reader experience for the book, which is my number one priority always, is the reader experience. So I think that just we had that common goal from the beginning. Like whether it was stated or not, we knew the other one was fighting for that. So that helps build that trust that was required, I think.
And the first pitch I gave Katie was, hey, I would love to write a trilogy with you in my Griffin Writers world. She was like, no, I'm not interested in playing in someone else's sandbox, right? And I'm glad that she said that, because then I said, okay, well, what about something that's set that ultimately is its own thing, and it ultimately evolved into a shared world that's just ours and there's no other books in it. But both of us went into it with the idea that it's not like I wasn't trying to ghostwrite a Katie Cross book, and she wasn't trying to ghostwrite my book, which is like we made it its own thing, which I think is really cool. And like you can recognize our styles when you read it, but it's not Alcara, right? And it's not Griffin Riders or any of my other series. Like it's its own thing.
Yes, Andy. Yeah,
Give me 1 minute, please. 1 minute, please. I'm in a call. Sorry, guys. My little
No
one's
worries.
here.
you know we get it.
Yeah, we get it.
Well, Derek doesn't know my curly girls, but the rest of y'all do. All right.
We
So
love her
my
curly
question
girl.
is, I'm not too familiar with audiobooks because I haven't had that much experience, but something that's always, kind of like clicked in my mind that I would love to hear is guys doing guys' voice and girls doing girls' voice. Would you ever, let Katie rope you into narrating? Would you, Katie, be open to roping him into narrating? Because it's fun when I think I've heard Katie's books narrated by somebody else and then by her. And obviously the experience of hearing the author and the person that kind of has the character in mind, it's way better than somebody else doing the voice. So yeah, I think that's something I don't think if it's done before or not. Garrett, you have more experience with audiobooks than I do.
Lots of them do
Oh,
that.
many.
I personally
Yep.
don't like it. My personal take on it is I don't like it when suddenly there's like a completely different kind of energy, because a different person is a different energy. And like with a great narrator, it doesn't matter if they're a male or a woman, because when I'm hearing the male role, I'm convinced that that's that person. Like I don't see the narrator, like I don't see Katie when I'm listening to her books. I don't see Kate. I see the characters, and it's the same now with Spring Spears, because once I got my head around the fact that I wasn't in Alcara, then I kind of went, oh yeah, that's right. Then I got right into it because I assigned voices to different characters and stuff like that. So that's just me personally, but Garrett might have different,
What do you think, Garrett?
So I both ways with that. I've heard ones that were done well, and don't put me on the spot because I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know I've heard ones that like I have enjoyed, and then I've heard ones that are very jarring. Like the two narrators obviously are not on the communication level with each other. They're just kind of doing their own thing, and it's very jarring to listen to. So I've had experiences both ways when listening to books when there's two people going at each other like that. What was it? What is that new one that's out that everybody keeps talking about? It's always advertised on Audible.
Which
it's supposed to be a scary book. But it's like a whole bunch of people reading it.
Oh,
And then
Sandman?
there's like, yeah, Sandman.
Sandman.
Yeah. That was why I
personally,
didn't.
me personally,
Yeah.
that one was not for me. There was too many.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
guys, I got my little one running around now.
You're fine. We like little ones.
It's Muppet time. It's the Muppet hour.
Right? There was too many people playing in that sandbox there, and there was all the extra noises and everything else. I got the first book and I started it, and about an hour into it, I quit. I couldn't do it no more.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
So I'm going to answer your question, Andy, but Garrett, have any of you heard of the Girl in Space podcast? So it's Girl in Space. It's free. It's an audio drama. So to me, this was Andy's question done well, but it's more than just like a swapping of narrators. Like it's an audio drama, so they have like feet, they have like footsteps, they have like knocking, they have computer sounds in the background, they have like garden sounds in the background when they're in a plant. Like really amazing story. It was picked up by Netflix. My friend Sarah wrote it. She was like the executive producer. They had a showrunner, and then Netflix dropped her the day before the announcement. It was awful. But it's this amazing story, and she's working on season 2. But it is like, because it's an audio drama with all the other sound, it's like this whole other animal. And I think it's really well done because you go into it expecting like every single character has a different name, that the editing's really well done. Like she just did really well with it. So that's an example of one that I feel has been done well. To answer your question, Andy, I am open to the idea, but that would not happen unless I had a studio to record in and someone else was in charge of everything else. Because consider, you've been to the live recordings, right? When I do the live audiobook. Yeah. So if Derek were to take even like just the males, or like if he were to take specific characters, I would then have to stop recording whenever he would record. He would be on a different computer recording those segments. We would have to somehow perfectly piece those together, even though we have different backgrounds. It would be a nightmare. You could only do it in a studio.
It's too complicated.
Yeah, it is. So if you're in a studio, they have absolutely dead noise. Everything is perfectly balanced and set up. But Derek and I, our white noise is going to sound very different, right? And so even that can be jarring in an audiobook. So ain't no time for that on my own dollar. But if a studio came to me and said, hey, like, so my friend is just about to sell her audiobook rights to Audible for probably $150,000, right? So if that were to happen to me, and Audible or Dreamscape came to me and said, hey, we want to take it, you can produce, I'd say, give me a studio, and then they would pay for the studio to go record there and we could do it there. But in my closet, no. But there are, and then like romance, it's really hot in romance right now to have a female narrate the female point of view and then a male narrate the male point of view. So it would have been like, I would do Bethany and then Arthur would do Maverick. And so you would swap every chapter. But some readers don't like that either, because then when Bethany talks in Arthur's voice, it's different than the Bethany that talks in my voice.
It's disorienting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think that that like the voices in the head would be different, but I think the fact that it would have to be in a studio kind of like takes away the whole.
And the other thing is I don't know, Katie's audio guy did a really good job blending this, but I bet if you go listen to the author's notes, which I recorded my own author's note at the end, I would imagine you can tell a difference with the white noise, even though he tweaked everything. Like there's going to be some small differences that if you're casually listening, you wouldn't notice. But if you go in like listening for that, I think you're going to hear there's some differences in white noise. And that's also, set up different mics, like everything Katie said. And I mean, honestly, that's like a whole separate like relationship, right? Where like I know how much time Katie put into getting up to this level of, this skill level of being a narrator. I haven't done that. My wife has been driving me crazy. She's like, you should, when she found out Katie was doing that, she's like, you should do that too. And I'm like, and like, I don't write full time, right? I have a day job too. So I'm like, basically for me, it would come down to like, sword summer, or do I spend 6 months, training up as a narrator? I totally, I have the self-confidence to do it. And I think I have a decent amount of voices I could do it. But even that, like you still have to train that and you have to coach that aside from the technical aspects. So like, I would love to, like Katie said, it would have to require someone being like, we're going to pay you guys to sit in a studio to do this, which would be super awesome. But as it is, like Katie's version with the voices, they're awesome. They're amazing. I would love to, I wouldn't do this because I'm still in the 7 years with Griffin Writers and Katie's not for hire to do other narrating. I would love if Katie had narrated the Griffin Writers trilogy. That would have been like, I would, if I could snap my fingers and switch narrators, nothing against my old narrator, but I would have totally done that. So anyway, yeah, it would be super cool, but it's kind of a logistical nightmare.
That's a great question, Andy. Yeah, it's a great question.
That was a good question.
I don't even know if I think it would be fun to narrate in a studio. Because part of me is like, I don't really want you telling me how to do my book.
Right? Like
Like,
the
because usually if
producer.
you're in a studio, there's like a producer, and the producer is kind of like guiding and coaching, and I would probably be like, excuse you, this isn't
Back
my
off.
world.
Yeah, you
I
would
mean,
have
I
to
would
get
be
a
fine. I would be fine.
you
But
would have to get a studio without, just somebody to do the recording, and you be the producer at a certain level, right?
I
Or
need
at a
like Arthur to do it. I'd be like, I would do it if Arthur was my producer and like kind of guiding me because he and I have a good relationship that way. But if like some rando, I'd probably be like, mm-mm, no, Alcara
No.
didn't choose you.
Freedom Wood is going to spit you out.
Yeah, yes, Leadham Wood will chew you and spit you out. I have an entire forest that will come
I
after
love that, Carol.
you. Anyway, so the question we were diving into was, what are you excited about in the next books, or what are you wanting more of?
Lila's got her
relationships
hand
too.
up.
The relationships too.
Who had a hand up?
Lila.
Oh, okay. The relationships, like Astrid and Mara,
Yeah,
or like
and-
Astrid and Ewan.
Yeah, and because I love it when, you know, I feel like at the end I've suddenly got this group of people who really could do fantastic things together, like this almost, I don't know, what would you call it? It's like, because in our car it's different. There are like little like pairings and stuff, whereas this feels almost like this team, like this group, like this. I can't think of the word for it right now, but if that makes sense.
Like this tribe?
Yeah.
Fellowship.
Collaboration.
Fellowship.
Fellowship.
Like all these-
Fellowship's a good one.
Like these misfits all together, and what will they get up to, you know?
Yeah, that is a fun way to look at it. That's cool to hear you say it that way, because we can kind of look at it through that lens to
I'm totally
bring it
taking
home.
notes. Like I'm in the middle of writing
Yeah.
the rough draft. So you
This
may
was not
see
an
influences.
accident, Derek.
Yeah.
That question was not an accident.
Like in the end, guys, you know, like in the end, I really saw it. It's like, oh, you just put them all together and now you're leaving.
Yeah, they're separate.
Oh,
And you're
that
like,
was
I
just
don't get book 2 next month. What?
Yeah.
It's like, hello, I'm used to Katie timelines.
We're on Katie math, man. We're on Katie math.
Katie Math is the bane of all Kara. That's what I'm gonna say. Katie Math is the bane of all Kara. I had another question that sprouted up from that, but it left my brain.
Anybody else want to answer that one?
What was that question?
Tell us
Just
what
keep
you want.
doing what
I
you're
just-
doing. I'm loving it.
The bards, like I want to know more of their background stories and kind of where they're from, more about where they're from and things like that. I want to hear more about their world, right?
We kept
Where
the
they come
Highlands,
from.
right? Yeah, we kept the Highlands, didn't
Nope.
we?
Different name.
Nope. What is it now?
We could share a map. I don't think there's any spoilers. I can pull up a map.
Well, spoiler. Oh, for the next books. Yeah.
Well,
I
it's
think
just
also, are you guys interested in giants?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
How about,
Yeah.
did we talk about trolls, Derek?
We
I'm
did.
trying to remember.
We mentioned
Okay.
there are trolls.
And
here, there's a troll.
giants was in this world, right?
So this is
Oh, let me allow you to
Gnomes.
share. So
Big gnomes instead of little gnomes.
big gnomes, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
our little gnomes in Alcara are my favorite.
So in your contract, is it like no dragons, no griffins? Like you guys can't have those crossover since, or can that be a possibility?
Auckland, that's what it was, or how do you say that?
It used
So
to be
there's-
Peldrin, right?
Yep.
pretty.
And now the whole world is Vigard.
Vigard, that's what it was.
Yep.
Okay. Well, so the problem is when I wrote the book, they were all different names, and then he redid it. And well,
And
this
then
was
she
my fault.
recorded it.
And then so he redid it, and I recorded it with all these different names, but that wasn't enough for me to have all the names stick in my head. And so I'm still trying to remember, like, what is this called again? So in the podcast, I was using the wrong words, and Derek's like, it's not that anymore.
I'm like in the chat, in the like.
I was
in
like,
the
I've read
host
this. I
chat.
promise I've read this.
But,
Is that in the book anywhere?
No,
That is way cool.
This is
Yeah.
for Katie's reference only. I actually didn't make this until after we finished Spring for Spears. I put this at the top of Sword Summer, so
It's
she would
pretty.
for a reference. But
That's awesome.
I'm totally fine putting it in. Derek, can I have a copy to put on my website? Do you care?
yeah, for sure.
Okay, I'll put a copy on the website you guys can download, and we can put it in our next version of the ebook if you guys want, because my readers love maps.
We will.
Yeah.
I will definitely give it a little bit more of a facelift, but yeah, I think it'd be awesome to include it. So
I think that looks great.
There's not enough treats for Terry.
Terry, sweet Terry. Well, Derek has been a very patient co-writer. I don't think it's like super easy to work with me.
well, I think it goes both ways. I mean, honestly, because like Katie has a different production timeline than I do, and
No, what?
there's a lot of I think we've both been pretty patient. I think it's been a pretty like I said, you just like this would not have worked with a lot of other authors, even if their voices were the same. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that this survived, and yeah, it's been really fun to work together. But anyway, so there's the rough draft map, never seen by anyone else in the world except for Katie and you guys.
Dun. You guys,
That is awesome. I
get the
love it.
deets. It's fun, huh? Don't you love all the mountains? I love all the mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So pretty.
So those are a few things you can look for. We're definitely going to have more magic development in the upcoming books. Astrid and Mara are going to kind of start finding who they are together and where they belong. Did you have something, Karen?
So are the giants that you mentioned going to be different than the ones in this book
What do you
that
mean?
are named in the vocab? The Stalogras?
The Stalogers.
Yep, nope, that's them.
Stalogras?
That's them. Yeah.
That's them, the same ones.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep, that's the ones.
And we're both we promise we have our world building down behind the scenes, even though we can't think of any of the names right now, right? But yeah.
Derek actually has a firmer grasp on it than I do because he does the first draft. So he does a lot more of those initial decisions. Even though we've agreed on the 3-act structure, Derek actually does more decision making up front, where I come in and do decision making in a different way because things are established in front of me. And so he kind of does the harder deciding that kind of ingrains it better in his head. So he's always going to be the one that remembers it better than me, just because of that reason. And because I write
So
books
what
so
was
quickly.
your direct thing so we can directly ask you, Derek, when we need to know something?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if you're ready, Derek. I don't know if you're ready.
I'm just kidding.
I will do my best. But no, I love when readers are like, what about this? Or, just talking about kind of the world building and stuff behind it.
What about the Nissel folk?
There will be
Yes, there will be more Nissel folk.
I don't know if they're going to feature as much in book 2, but they will definitely play a prominent role over the course of the 4 books. And then
So basically, we're doing what we do, well, what I do, and what most authors do is you kind of create your world in book 1 and you start really small, and then we're going to start expanding the conflict out so that the big bad gets bigger and badder across all 4 books. But then you start to see all of Vigard like come in, and you start to get a better glimpse of the world, just like usual. So a lot of these things will grow out. But what we like to hear is what you're excited about, because then we can sort of aim our focus on the things that you want to hear more about. Because sometimes Derek and I, you guys know, like I like say stuff all the time and you're like, no. And I'm like, really? I had no idea. Like we make assumptions even unknowingly, and we like guide things a certain way when it's not actually the way you wanted. So we just try to get that information in advance so we know we're delivering really what you want. But
I could see Terry getting really interested in the differences in the sword makers between the Nissel folk and the.
We should see if he'll do
Andre.
this map in leather, do Vigard in leather. Poor guy.
Well, that's what I meant. There's not enough trees for Terry.
I want
It's
Derek.
not enough trees.
I like what Derek showed us.
Yeah, it looks
I really
good,
like
huh?
it, Derek.
It's a great
really
map.
cool.
That was really helpful to me because it's a shared world, right? But we can't share minds. So, and I'm extremely visual. Like I'm very, very visual person, which is why I love Pinterest. So I just said, I was like, can you just throw down a quick map? And he showed me that, and I was like, well, dang, like that was beyond what I was looking for. Like you could have just sketched it, but this is great.
Actually, I don't think I have it. I don't know if you remember this, Katie, but I think the original thing I sent you was like literally a sketch, and I think I took a picture of it on my phone and texted it to you. I'll have to go back through and see if I can find it, but it was like stick figure. It was basically names like 2 mountains, and like that was it. But
which is fine because it, it gives me something more visual. But I will say, because we'll start wrapping up here pretty soon. We didn't really start till 15 after, so we can go a little bit more if you guys have residual questions. But
like
when
the fighting stuff was really good, and I like it when you bring in like you did it with the Griffin writers as well. It was that like there's still lightness to it, like you know what I mean, like there's fighting, but like there's and again, it's not fighting for fighting's sake. You know what I mean, like everything that you have done in the book is it's not just there because you need a scene of something. You know what I mean? Everything that you guys have done is like there's not wasted words, or there's not scenes that are in there because you need a scene like it. It's like everything has sort of led or given me something. Like I got something out of that, and that I like that.
Oh, bye, Andy. Good luck with the chaos wrangling. It was so good to see you. Thank you.
Take care,
Love
Andy.
ya. We'll see you later.
Bye.
That's good to hear, Lila, because that's where that plot structure and all that editing really came into play. Because a lot of the scenes I cut, it was like, is this serving like the reader? Like, do they learn or gain something new from this that we haven't put elsewhere or could not like merge together into a scene to keep things moving quickly? So that's a really sweet compliment to receive, because both of us worked really hard for that. And that does not, I mean, it's easy reading is really hard writing, right? Like you have like there's a definite skill. Yeah, there's a definite skill in knowing that.
And listening to it, because like
cool.
I'm listening to other authors, the big authors, the ones that get lots of like, everybody read this book, la la la. And I'm listening to them and I'm going, yeah, Katie would have done that way better. Sort of like, and it's like, and I don't mean anything bad against them, but it's great that you both go into the don't waste words kind of thing, because like it's great to have descriptions, but when it starts waffling so long that I've lost the energy and the drive of it, and and that didn't happen in Spring for Spears, so that's good. Yeah.
That's excellent. I love hearing that.
I love hearing that. Part of that is, both of us being parents and being like, okay, this is writing time. We've got to like use it well. Just push it out. But the kind of my rule of thumb is, if I'm bored writing it, or I'm like, if I'm slogging through it, I mean, revisions are a different story, but if it's a rough draft and I'm really slogging through this scene, I'm gonna know right away that it's not gonna be fun to read, right? And that may mean I finish it and heavily revise it, but a lot of times, a lot of things that Katie did with this was we just skipped it, right? Like I had a lot of, to keep the pacing up, I had like a few, it wasn't like a summary chapter, but it'd be 2 or 3 paragraphs, like, oh, 2 weeks had passed, here's what happened. And we just kind of jumped to the next scene rather and set the stage a little bit different way to keep that pacing going.
That was one of the things I did very intentionally, because that's my style, right? Like I knew that I was removing a little bit of Derek's style to have like these transitional paragraphs and moving through. There's a actual word for it, I can't remember, but I was like, no, we're just going to structure the beginning of this next chapter to show, like to start the action.
Katie, that was worked well. Being your first book together, did that actually benefit you in some ways, because you saw the background like of what Derek was seeing for before you took it out, kind of thing? Do you think because it was the first one and now you guys are into it more, that was helpful, even though you know what I mean, even though poor Derek like he'll work, it was like that stuff that we don't always see, that you guys have to know, like all this like there's so much you guys know about these worlds that we don't read in the books, but you know them because you need to know them for everything else to sort of link up.
Yeah, I think so. It did help me understand this is how Derek sees the book moving, and this can be taken out because this isn't necessary, but I know where his head's at. But also it was helpful because then it established moving forward, let's make this more efficient for both of us, right? And this is where this is needed, this is not needed, etc. I think the only thing I would do differently that I didn't do, and I will do for the next book, for Sword Summer, right? Sword Summer. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, what season are we in? For Sword Summer, that we'll do differently, and I wasn't doing at the time I edited Spring for Spears, was a world Bible. So I haven't actually talked to Derek about this, but I have this template where I can set up a spreadsheet that's a world Bible. And as I write all of my books now, I update a timeline, character list, descriptions, magical structures, leadership, all this kind of stuff. I have this giant, it's such a big spreadsheet, I can't even access it offline. I call it the beast. It's huge. So that's the only thing I would do differently that would have aided us, that would have helped. So I understood, well, Derek saw that this way, but it's not going to stay in the story, but it will be noted in the World Bible kind of thing. So that'll be something we can improve upon. But I don't have any regrets for how we did the first book, because we were both finding Astrid, right? And now we know Astrid better, and we'll be able to do it a little more efficiently.
So. And she's great. She's such a feisty thing.
I love her. That was actually what I was gonna say too, is in the end, I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about Astrid and Vigard, right? Because she's not mine. And at the time, I hadn't really learned and appreciated that, frankly, none of my stories are mine. Like, Alcara sure as crap isn't mine, right? Like I got out of the way so Alcara can come to being, but she's not mine. And I didn't appreciate that at the time. But when I finished the edit, and I was like, I hope Derek's okay with what I did, and I sent it back to him, I just remember saying, I really love Astrid. Like, I felt really bonded to Astrid and the world as it stood then. And I wasn't sure, after Derek rewrote the world and named everything and changed the literally changed the landscape, how I'd feel about it. But then after I recorded it, because really I only have 2 big interactions with Astrid. It's the second draft, the recording, and then we did some proofing and stuff. I loved her even more. And I felt like this is still a character that I feel deeply attached to, right? And now I understand that the stories belong to all of us. They don't belong to just me. But I feel like Astrid is still talking to me, just in a different way, the same way as Alcara does, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys know I talk about all the time, like the characters in Alcara are always talking to me. I felt the same way about Astrid, which was really, really quite fun. Yeah.
Cool.
Any final? Oh, go ahead, Derek.
I was just gonna say, I'm gonna put my caveat in here. So there was a ripple effect, right, when we changed the world around. So that's part of book 2 is like, oh, the second half of this. And I've talked to Katie about this. I'm like, the second half of this book doesn't work either. But luckily, it was just an outline. So I'm excited to one, for Katie to see what we have going in book 2, but also to be able to get book 2 out, not only so you guys can experience it, but it's kind of going to be that middle point, right? It's like the halfway point in the series. So one, not only is it going to move faster, knowing that we're not rewriting outlines anymore, but it's really going to open things up for the world and kind of get us into the big leagues as far as the stakes and things go. So yeah, I'm just really excited to share that with you guys.
Oh, it'll be so fun. And Derek has agreed, it's not in our contract, but it will be in the next one, to do the book clubs.
It's so great having Derek here as well.
I'm putting it in our next prenup.
I'll be like, hi everyone, I'm contractually obligated to be here tonight.
That's what Jordan says on our dates. I'm contractually obligated to show up for this stupid run. Just kidding. I have to tell you guys really quick and something, because I know you will love this. At the beginning of the call, I said the comment, you choose your crazy, right? Like Lila, I think I was talking to you. I said, you choose your crazy. So when I went into the kitchen to sweeten my tea, Derek, I always call him Derek on the calls, Jordan was like, thanks for talking about me in there. And I was like, what? He's like, what? You, I chose my crazy, and that was you. His favorite, it's like his number one goal in life is to get me to flip him off, right? Or to like, seriously, it's like, it's his favorite game to do something so that I'll like flip him off. lovingly sort of, or to like give him the look, and then he'll like rate it like 5 out of 10. Look, dang it, should have gone harder. So he just gets really excited based on the look he gets based on the comments he made. So
I
funny. He's
love
like,
it.
I'm so happy you're talking about it because I chose you as my crazy. I'm like, thank you, sir. I thought you'd love that.
I should also,
It's good.
speaking of spouses, I need to give my wife Brianna a shout out because she found like, I mean, I know Katie, and some of you are probably on Katie's alpha reader group and proofreaders. I don't know, but so you guys are all awesome. Everyone that does that, everyone who just reads the book is awesome. Let me just put that out there first of all. But she went through, like, as I was doing the rewrite, like she listened to Katie's audio version. There was stuff that like didn't make it through the rewrite that was from both worlds. So yeah, I just want to give her a shout out for that too, because there was a lot involved with the rewrite, and it wasn't just me doing like find and replace. Like there were a lot of it was on our beta readers, and yeah. So
his
Brianna,
wife,
is that what you said?
yeah,
Brianna?
Brianna, yeah.
Brianna.
Yay, Brianna.
His wife is amazing. I love her so much. She was part of our FanX table in Salt Lake City because Derek and I sold together, and we'll sell together again this year. And she was amazing. I could just start talking to people, and she was doing all the transactions. She had like broken her ankle or something. Like she is totally our people. If you guys, if you guys met her, you would love her. I love her to the end. I was like, man, Derek, you really lucked out. He's like, I know.
Like, aside from all the other wonderful stuff, just as far as like, me being self-serving as an author, it's really helpful to have someone who's read everything and pays attention to detail. Cause like she'll like read a draft when Katie's reading it and be like, this is called that, or that's this. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you're keeping track, because me and Katie got no idea, right? So yeah.
It's true. She is his Samantha, basically. If any of you know my Samantha, she keeps my head on. Anyway, Samantha always jokes that I'm Walt and she's Roy. Like I'm Walt Disney, she's Roy, and she has to like keep things from crashing. Because wasn't Walt Disney bankrupt like 10 times, right? Something like that. Like Katie Math. It was Walt Math too. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. As always,
thank
amazing.
you for having it.
I love our book clubs. Yeah. I look forward to more Astrid and Mara book clubs as book 2 comes out. We will let you know when that is. We don't know ourselves, but we'll take a look at it. And we have streamlined the process, so we're certainly hoping it can be faster. But to manage expectations, summer is almost upon us, and that means I will have 2 small bodies with me much more often than usual. And I will be doing a lot of cons this summer, so there's a lot of travel, and it should get super interesting. So we'll let you know what timelines look like.
We can promise books 3 and 4 will be faster because, all the things that I've mentioned that bled over into 2. But I'm just glad you like the story. That's the most important part.
Yep. And it will be coming. So for all of you, thank you. And you're getting 2 more books over the next 2 weeks, so you can wait for Astrid.
Are we doing a live writing with Katie on Monday, Katie?
Yes, ma'am. I think so. Okay. Yes. Sorry, I had to what day is it?
What day is it? What are we doing?
I need a t-shirt that says that, right? Because I say that. I was like, how many times a day do I say that? Like, what day is it? I think it just represents my confused state of mind. Yes, live writing with Katie Monday. I will be developing the plot for the returning, or the return. That's right. There's no ings. I'll be developing the plot for the return, which is the final in our series of 4 Merrick and Bianca books. So it is basically once Bianca and Merrick come back together, but from Merrick's point of view. So you're going to figure, you're going to see him before he goes to the celebration. Is that what it's called? Right?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. And before he goes to the celebration, you'll kind of see Merrick and what he's going through, seeing Bianca again, and then seeing Bianca with Baxter at the ball. I'm so excited. It's going to be so good. And I'm super happy how The Wander came out, so now I'm even more excited for the return. So we'll see you Monday, usual time. I will be solo parenting, so if I'm a little bit late, don't worry, I'll be there. And
it's next Friday, sister, which is 2.
Next Friday is Sister Witches 2 book club. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And Karen and I will be launching puzzles that day too, to just kind of get us all ready.
Okay.
Yay! We love your puzzles. That's so exciting.
Because Karen was the beast on this one. She got through the whole book, and she said, "Are you done?" And it's like, no. Every time I start reading, life happens.
I thought it was tonight.
I know. So
I thought it was tonight too. Yeah.
So it was kind of like, oh, nuts.
So I read the entire book on Wednesday, and then I just read this one, Spring for Spears, today. So
you guys are amazing.
I started it at 3 o'clock. So
wow. All of you are amazing.
Say hi.
I like that. It looks like you're calling. It looks like you're
closer.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, we were talking about you. So I just wanted to say hi. She just put a 2-year-old to bed, and she went from the cave to the light, so she's like blind.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
Good to see you. I'll see you Monday.
We'll see you all on Monday. Bye.
Bye.